I'm back at my computer, Demetra, if you need anything.
Whitney, thank you. Can you guys can see my screen, right?
Looking at your mailbox right now.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, this is so any offer that you write when you start a new file in car forms, it's going to create, these are the different offers that I've written or listings that I've taken. It saves them. So today I created one. I'm very original here. We're going to write an offer on 123 Main Street in Encino. It already created an envelope for it. So at this point, you've already taken your clients out, whether in the old days, we used to put them in the car with us, and that was a great opportunity for you to get to know your buyer and, you know, kind of bond with them. In the world of COVID, we meet them at properties and we follow them to each property. So at this point, we have shown them houses and they have found one that they want to write an offer on. So let me scoot this over. This is your cover page. You can fill it out if you choose to. I never do, but that's just me. So I just go ahead over here where it says all forms. I click on that. This will be a drop down of all car forms. You see they're in alphabetical order. The top one is the cover sheet that I don't fill out, but you're welcome to. Then it's the residential listing agreement and then the residential purchase agreement. The rest of everything is in alphabetical order all the way down. So these are all car forms.
Demetra,
Yes.
I think we're saying the wrong thing. We're just saying your inbox.
Thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
Where's my Vanna White? Whitney?
Go to the bottom, Demetra, to the zip, maybe to the zip in the little tab. I'll come over to.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for letting me know, Nancy.
You're welcome.
So you're just seeing my inbox?
Yeah.
You're not seeing this? Isn't that weird?
That is good.
Go here?
Yeah, click on that.
Oh, so they're seeing this.
They're seeing this. So let's see. Now
So I want to close that. I don't want them to have to look at all that.
go ahead and click on this again. Are you guys seeing anything now?
What do you see now?
Inbox.
We're still in
Inbox
the
still.
box.
Maybe stop the share and restart it.
Okay, hold on.
Let's stop. Okay,
There's all the pretty faces.
let's try it again.
Share screen
And
with,
yeah, let's do that one. And then click share. How about now? Better?
That's
Yes.
better.
Better?
that's,
Okay.
does that look like, you see the form libraries on the right hand side?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, thank you.
I'll
See,
be
she
around.
saves me. What would I do without you?
I'll do that.
Okay, so again, this is the cover sheet. If you want to fill it out, this is the next thing on the form libraries is the listing paperwork and the residential purchase agreement. So it kind of, car forms, they've kind of made it dummy proof. It used to be that we'd get the purchase agreement and then we'd have to pull all the different documents that go with the purchase agreement. Now they could put it all in one for us. So all we do is click on residential purchase agreement. And it'll give us everything that we need to fill out to write an offer. Eventually. Okay, so it's right here. Let's click on it. Okay, what are we seeing now?
Disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship.
Perfect. Thank you, Luz. One of my dearest friends is Luz. Are you from Colombia?
I am.
So is she. I saw her this weekend. Love her. Beautiful country.
Yes, thank you.
Disclosure regarding real estate agency relationships. This is a form that you're gonna sign when you write an offer. You're gonna sign it when you take a listing. You're gonna sign it if you represent a tenant. It needs to be signed before you write a contract. It's very, very, very important form. If you don't have your agency disclosure relationship form, your offer, your contract is voidable. Okay, so that's why they have it on top. It's the first form when you go to write an offer. So this just says, right now we're representing the buyer. The buyer's agent, we have a diligent, if anybody has any questions, please stop me. The buyer's agent has a diligent exercise of reasonable skill and care and performance of the agent's duties. We have a duty of honest and fair dealings and in good faith, and a duty to disclose all facts known to the agent materially affecting the value or desirability of the property. Okay, so this is what our duties are to our buyer. So at the bottom, it's highlighted because this is buyer's brokerage firm to buyer. So this is a relationship agreement between you and your buyer. So take notes on these because these are you can either type it along with me or you can go ahead and take your notes. So click the box buyer. What's our buyer's name? No? Okay, how about Joseph Buyer?
Okay,
Joseph Buyer, does he have a wife or is he single? He could have a wife, he could have a husband.
Jane,
I'm sorry?
Let's give him a wife.
Okay, what's her name? Judy.
Mary.
Mary, okay, Mary Buyer. So we have Joseph, oh, Joseph and Mary. Ah, I get it. So Joseph and Mary Buyer. And then we notice the date isn't highlighted. They don't want us to type in a date. They want the buyer to, it'll get dated when the buyer signs it. Okay. The agent, Keller Williams Realty, that's not our name. Keller Williams Realty is in Austin, Texas. We are Keller Williams Realty, comma, Encino, Sherman Oaks. That is our legal name. You can either do Keller Williams Realty, Encino, Sherman Oaks, or KW, Encino, Sherman Oaks. Either one of those is our DBA. And then our license number, once you type it in here once, it'll have it in the drop down. That's the company license number. You'll want to write that down for when you write an offer, 018111831. And then but where it says buy, that's where you're going to sign and your name will pop in here. And then your license number. And that's my license number, 01165518. That's how long I've been around. Most of your numbers start with a 20. Mine starts with an 11. It just shows how old I am. Hi, Danny. How are you? Haven't seen your face in a while. Okay.
I know, Casey.
Been a while. So this is your agency relationship form. If you notice right here, it says, I acknowledge receipt of a copy of this disclosure and the portions of the civil code printed on the back or on a separate page. This is the civil code. We used to have to sign this page. Now by signing page 1, we're saying we acknowledge page 2. It's a very boring page. It's got all the civil codes. Okay. You don't fill anything out here. Notice it says do not complete, sample only. Okay, so we leave this alone. Page 1 and then page 2. Anybody have questions regarding our disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship form? Okay. So we're going to scroll down to the next form. It's Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. This is a newer form. It came up, you can always see down here is the when the revision was. This is actually a new form that came up October of 2020. This is a form saying that we are not allowed to discriminate based on race, color, ancestry, sex, sexual orientation, gender, national origin, religion, gender identity, all of these things. Marital status, citizenship, your language you speak. So this you would think would go without saying, but now we have to sign this form. So it's 2 pages. You go ahead and read through it in your spare time. I'm gonna save you from having to listen to me read these forms to you. It kind of goes without saying, just read through it, become familiar with it, and your buyer will sign it. Joseph and Mary will sign as buyers, and it'll pop in that it'll date it if you DocuSign it to them. And then when we present it to the seller, if the seller accepts our offer, the seller will then sign all these forms. Okay? Any questions regarding this fair housing and discrimination advisory? Nope. All righty then. We haven't even gotten to the purchase agreement yet. Possible representation of more than one buyer or seller, disclosure and consent. This is a 1-page form that goes over different scenarios on what might happen and that we are authorized to represent multiple buyers, multiple sellers, dual agencies. So multiple buyers, you may be working with many prospective buyers at the same time. I've had the situation where I had buyers that both wanted a 3-bedroom, 2-bath pool home in Granada Hills up to $350,000. This was years ago, up to $350,000. They were actually friends. One referred the other to me. And then there was a little argument that I was showing Maria the houses first. And so I had to put them both in my minivan at the time and take them out at the same time. But we didn't have this form, but it just puts everybody on notice that I might have the same, you might not be my only buyer for this type of property. I may be working with many prospective buyers at the same time. These prospective buyers may have interest in and make offers on the same properties. You might have 2 buyers that want to write an offer on the same property. Happens. This also goes over multiple sellers. We may have, and when they say it's brokers individually or through its associate licensees, when they say broker, that might not just be you, it might be me or anybody in our office, in our brokerage. Okay, may have listings on many properties at the same time. As a result, broker will attempt to find buyers for each of those listed properties. Some listed properties may appeal to the same prospective buyers. Some properties may attract more prospective buyers than others. It also goes into dual agency. And dual agency could be, I represent the buyer on my listing. It could also be that Nancy represents the buyer on my listing. We're the same brokerage. So it's classified as dual agency. Even though we're 2 separate agents, we're both with KW and Sino Sherman Oaks. We're dual brokerage, dual agency. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and already autofills Joseph and Mary's name. It autofills the company's name, our license numbers, and my name. So there's nothing I have to put in here. Does anybody have any questions regarding the possible representation of more than one buyer or seller? I've never had any pushback on this. It's just clarifying that these situations may occur.
Demetra, I have a question.
Please.
So this form and the previous form, who signs it first? The buyer or the seller, or depending on who you're representing?
It depends who you represent. Right now, we're representing the buyer. So the buyer is going to sign it. If this was a listing package, we were taking a listing, this form would be in there as well, and the seller would be signing it.
Got it. So
Okay.
Then, so at the end, both buyer and seller will be signing the same
Yes.
form.
At the end, when we're in escrow, we're going to have what we call a fully executed form, which means everything highlighted: the seller, the buyer's brokerage, and the seller's brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
We'll need all parties to have signed it. And it can be signed in 2. We can have it signed with us and our buyer, and we can have the exact same form with the seller and their agent.
Got it.
Together, we can do it in 2 parts. That's not a problem. Okay? Good question. The next form, what's our address? 123 Main Street? Encino 91436. Okay, this sorry, zoom forward. Okay, this is a form that's newer. It came around in 2017. We had to, unfortunately, CAR had to create this form because we're seeing more and more wire fraud and electronic funds fraudulent things come up. So basically this form, if you see in the middle of it in bold, you're you, the buyer or the seller, whoever we're representing, is strongly advised to obtain phone numbers and account numbers only from escrow officers. Do not ever wire or electronically transfer funds prior to calling and confirm the transfer instructions. Use only the phone number you were provided previously. Escrow will send your clients, once we're in escrow, crypted emails so that to try to avoid this wire fraud. Do not use any different phone numbers or account numbers included on any email transfer instructions. Orally confirm the transfer instruction is legitimate and confirm the bank routing number, account numbers, and other codes before taking steps to transfer the funds. These guys have gotten really good at doing this. They can send an email to your clients because they break in. They can use the logo of the escrow company. It looks pretty legit. So if you get something, you pick up the phone. Your client picks up the phone and calls escrow. And if they say, we didn't send that, do not wire any funds to that email. And it's happened. They've attempted it with our escrow company, but we've caught it before it happened. When I worked for Rodeo Realty, Encore Escrow was our escrow company. A couple of times years ago, like in the early 20-teens, like 2013 in there, it happened where our clients wired like $500,000 to Russia or China or wherever it ended up, I don't know. So we got to be careful. These hackers and scammers, they know how to do this and make it look legitimate. So we want to make sure our buyer, before they wire their funds into escrow, that it is legit, that it is going to our escrow company. Okay. So they're going to go ahead and sign. I think we've got a good handle on it. I think our escrow companies have a good handle on it, on educating our clients how to handle the wire transfers so that they know it's going to the proper place. Does anybody have any questions on this? You're going to see it when you take a listing because the same thing would happen with the seller. When escrow closes, there's the seller's proceeds that we want to make sure goes to the seller and not to somewhere else. Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, very good. Next is the RPA. This is our California Residential Purchase Agreement. The last time it was revised was December 2018. It was due to be revised December 2020, but because of COVID, they've put it off. I do have a copy of what it's going to look like. We're going to have a new RPA in 2021. So December of this year, it's going to come out. It is 16 pages. This one that we currently have is 10 pages. I'm getting familiar with it. It's not as scary as it when I first looked at it. It looks totally different than what I've been used to for the last 30 years. But it's always changed. I mean, when I first started, it was 2 pages. Now it's 10 pages, the RPA. So it's gone through, then it was 4, and then it was legal size, and now it's letter size. And so it's gone through a lot of transformations. And as we evolve, things keep changing. So, but I still want you to get to know this form because it's everything that's in this purchase agreement is going to be in the new one. It's just going to look a little different and moved around a little bit. So this, we're going to go ahead and put in the date prepared, which is today is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2021. It already autofills it for us. So this is an offer from Joseph and Mary Buyer, who's the buyer. The real property to be acquired is 123 Main Street, Encino, California, 91436, situated in Encino. The county is Los Angeles. You can put LA, you can write out Los Angeles, whichever you prefer. And the zip code, Then it asks for the assessor's parcel number. The one thing that we want to do is when we sit down to write the offer, these days, usually our buyer's not with us. We might have them on the phone in case we have questions about, you know, how much do you want to, how much of a loan are you getting? What purchase price do you want to write? But you want to print out the MLS sheet. You want to have the proper address, the proper zip code. On the MLS sheet, you're going to have the assessor's parcel number. And it'll look something like that. Okay. Want to make sure that APN is correct, that APN matches that address. The purchase price offered is, you're going to put it numerically. How much of an offer are we writing? $1 million. So you type in the million. When you hit tab, it's going to put your cents in for you, and it's going to write it up, type it up like in words. Like on your check, when you write a check, it's numeric, and then it'll write the 1 million. Okay. Please jump in if you have any questions. Close of escrow shall occur on, you can put an actual date. If your buyer for some reason needs it to close by the end of June or on June 30th, and you could put the date here. What you normally see is this box checked.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Hi, Yarzu.
Hi. So I usually, and lately I try to use the MLS Connect on the top, so that will fill out the rest of the information for me. So you don't recommend this, or is optional, or you
can if you choose to. I just, you know, everybody finds their own way of doing it. If that works for you, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So how many days of an escrow do you want? Let me back up a little bit. So before we sat down to write the offer, we're going to, with that MLS sheet, we're going to call the listing agent. Hi, this is Demetra. I'm writing an offer on your listing at 123 Main Street in Encino. My buyers love it. How many offers do you have? 7? Wow. Okay. Are they at list price? You can ask, you know, if they don't have to tell you. If their sellers don't want it to share with you, then they're not going to tell you if they think it's okay. Some agents will say, oh, my top offer is $950, or it's, you know, over list price. It's $10,000 over list price, or they might share that with you. So I always ask. The worst that can happen is they won't tell me. But I call them and I let them know I'm writing an offer. I find out how many offers they have, because if they have, and in this environment, we're seeing multiple offers, right? So if we're seeing multiple offers, we might want to write a really clean offer, not try to come in, not try to lowball. There's no lowballing today. That was a thing of the past, a thing of the past right now. And I also ask, what escrow company do they want? What title company do they want? How many days escrow does their seller need? If it's a vacant house, they probably want sooner the better, right? If they've lived there for 50 years, they might need more than 30 days to get out. It just depends. So I always ask the listing agent, what is the seller looking for? Because we want, especially in today's environment, we want to make the cleanest offer we can, and something that will get accepted, and that we don't have to go back and forth in a lot of counter offers, what we call cleanup counters. So let's just go with the 30-day escrow. The shorter time frame, the better. Less things can go wrong. I find that when it's a longer drawn out escrow, that just gives more time for something bad to happen. So we're going to go on this example with the 30-day escrow, okay? Another reason I print out that listing form is because it's going to have the seller brokerage information, the firm information, their license number and all that. We're going to need it. So if the listing agent is KW in this office, then you're just going to put the Keller Williams or KW Encino Sherman Oaks. You can use either. The license number for the office will be the same. And the listing agent is going to be Arzu Solapur. Okay. And then so once, and then I don't know her number, so we're just going to give her a number. Her license number, it will be in the MLS. So then we have to check boxes. since it's KW and Encino Sherman Oaks and KW and Encino Sherman Oaks, we are dual agent, right? Even though there's two different agents, it's the same brokerage, so it's considered a dual agent. So we'll check this box. We represent both buyer and seller, okay? Makes sense? If the listing agent is a different company, let's say it's Rodeo Realty, and the agent is, my favorite agent over there is Brandon Haft. We're going to put their information. Funny, I still remember that after 20 years being there. And then whatever Brandon's license number is. Wow. Okay. And then in that case, Rodeo represents the seller. Brandon is the seller's agent. Keller Williams represents the buyer. Oops, where'd it go? Why won't it uncheck? There we go. There we go. Okay. So in this case, they represent, it keeps going back. But you get my point, right? So they represent the seller and we represent the buyer. Very important that this gets spelled out, okay? Agency confirmation. Now we get down to finance. This can be a problem for a lot of people. This is, so they're purchasing the house for $1 million. We always want the initial deposit to be 3% of the purchase price. And you'll see when you get to paragraph 21, liquidated damages is 3%. So that's why, but I'll explain when we get there. So to make your offer show as strong as it can be, you want to put the full 3%. What's 3% of $1 million?
30,000.
Thank you. So 30,000 is going to be our what we used to call good faith deposit. Buyer, so the deposit shall be the amount of 30,000, which is 3% of the million. Buyer direct deposit. Buyer shall deliver deposit directly to escrow holder by electronic funds transfer. So if you want to do electronic funds, you don't have to check any boxes. Just leave it. If you want to do it by cashier's check for whatever reason, or personal check, then you would check those boxes. Try to avoid that for many reasons. One reason you don't want a personal check is personal checks can bounce. And that's never a fun thing to have to go back to the client and say your check bounced. Or for the escrow to call you and tell you your client's check bounced. It's not good. And also you have to put it in the trust book. If you ever attach a check from a client, there's a trust book here in the front at Whitney's desk, and there's one in the Dixie office. So it's when we get audited, it's one of the first things they check is our trust book. So to avoid having to even deal with the trust book, electronic funds is always the cleanest, quickest, and easiest way to transfer funds. Okay, so you don't have to check any boxes. And when is it due? It's within 3 business days. This is the only time frame where it's business and not calendar. Okay. So let's say that this is, what is today, Wednesday? Or let's say it gets accepted today. So tomorrow's day 1, that's Thursday, Friday, Monday is the next business day. So that deposit is due into escrow by Monday, end of business on Monday. Okay. Any questions on that? Timeframes are real important. Okay, so there's your 30,000. Let's scroll down to the next. So that's 3A. 3B is if you need an increased deposit for whatever reason. When you go back to when we first met your buyer and you're showing them property and you're preparing them, you're telling them you need to, talk to a lender, get pre-approved, get your money liquidated. They might be pulling their deposit from a 401k. If they haven't liquidated that 401k and they don't have 30 in the bank, they might need to put 10,000 up here and increase the deposit, that 20,000 that they're going to get from their 401k down here in liquid and increase deposit. Okay. You want to try to avoid that. It's just cleaner. So in your conversations with your buyer, as you're showing them property, you want to make sure that, you know, all their ducks are in a row, that their funds are liquid. Okay. Then we don't have to use this increased deposit. So we'll leave that blank and go to the loan. If it's an all cash offer, you're going to check this all cash offer box. No loan is needed to purchase the property. The offer is not contingent on the buyer obtaining a loan. Written verification of sufficient funds to close this transaction is attached to this offer. That means bank statements, or where's that money coming from? They need to show at least $1 million in the bank. If they've got 10 million, show it. Show it to the seller. It'll just show the seller that these are really, these clients have money. They're very well, you know, they can definitely afford it. Not a problem. In this case, we're going to do a loan. The next box, if you don't have the copy of their bank statement, you can within 3 days after acceptance provide it to them. But to make the offer stronger, you want to show it up front, right? So if you get an all cash offer, show me the money. Where's the proof that you have this money before we accept your offer? I want proof. So you always want to have it with the offer. Does that make sense? But in this case, we're going to do a loan. The first loan in the amount of, to make numbers easy, we're going to do an 80-20 loan. So we're going to get a loan for 800,000, right? Which is 80% of the million. The loan shall be conventional financing, or if it's FHA, if it's VA, or seller financing, or if it's assumed financing. If it's conventional, we don't have to check any of those boxes. Okay. The loan shall be fixed at a rate not to exceed whatever the interest rates are today. You want to pad it by about 0.5 point. You definitely want to put something in here. We've had situations where this was left blank, and when the buyer canceled, they did not get their deposit back because they proved they could get a loan, even if the interest rates were, it was hard money loan and the interest rates were 12%. Their agent didn't protect them by putting an interest rate in here. So if interest rates today are like 3.5%, let's put 4% there. Which means if interest rates jump up, skyrocket, your buyer can get out. But it also protects them if they can't get a loan at a rate up to 4%, it gets them an out and gets their deposit back. That 30,000 is in jeopardy, okay? So we want to make sure we protect our buyer. That's our job, okay? This loan shall be at a fixed rate not to exceed 4%. This is an adjustable rate loan, so we skip this. Regardless of the type of loan, buyers shall pay points not to exceed 1% of the loan amount. Cap it so that they can't get a lender that's going to charge them a large amount. So I always cap it at 1%. Okay. We used to do a lot of second loans, like the first loan might be 90% and then 10% and then 10% down. But just to make it easy, we don't see that as much right now. So we're going to leave the second loan alone. This auto filled here. So the 20% down, 20% of $1 million is $200,000, right? 3% when we open escrow, and the balance of it, the balance of the down payment or purchase price in the amount of $170,000 to be deposited with escrow holder pursuant to escrow holder instructions. And then it adds up to the $1 million offer that we were offering. Okay. We used to have to do the math ourselves. Now that it's, again, made it dummy proof. As long as we fill in the loan amount and do our 3% up here, it'll do the math for us. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on page 1 of the RPA? No? Good. It's really important that we know this and that we do it correctly. Okay. So just, if you read it, it's really self-explanatory. Then the buyer's going to initial, it's going to ask for the buyer's initial at the bottom of each page. We'll go to page 2. If I don't get any questions, we're going to get through this really quickly. Page 2, verification of down payment and closing costs. Buyer shall within 3 days after acceptance deliver to seller written verification of buyer's down payment and closing costs. Or you check the box, pardon me, and the verification is attached. Again, in today's market, you want to make sure that you have it when you write the offer. If you say in 3 days after acceptance, they might not accept you. You want your offer to be as strong as possible so that they don't pass you by and accept somebody else, right? In order to make it as strong as possible, you want to have the verification of down payment and closing costs. That's their bank statement. And if they have 5 different bank statements that add up to their money, then you're going to do 5 different bank statements. Block out, get your Sharpie or your pen and block out their account number, because we're going to send it with the offer. It's going to be out on the internet, so we don't want it to get in the wrong hands with somebody's name, the balance, and the account number. So to protect our buyers, let's make sure we block out their account number, okay? We need their name on it. They can't go to the bank and pull out a receipt from the ATM machine that shows a balance. It's got to have their name on it, okay? Their name and the balance. Make sense? Appraisal contingency and removal. This agreement is contingent upon written appraisal of the property by a licensed or certified appraiser at no less than the purchase price. Buyer shall, as specified in paragraph 14BC in writing, remove the appraisal contingency or cancel this agreement within 17 days after acceptance. In today's environment, we're seeing a lot because there's multiple offers on every listing just about. We're seeing a lot of times where the seller wants the buyer to remove the appraisal contingency. If you check this box, then you're removing the appraisal contingency. Be careful with that, because what that means is the bank will lend on the appraised value. So we're writing an offer for $1 million. If it appraises at 900, that means your buyer's got to come up with $100,000 cash, right? Because the appraised value is 900, and we wrote an offer for $1 million non-contingent. That's a lot of cash to come up with, but we're seeing it happen all the time. You might not check it when you write an offer, but the listing agent might counter that out. We have to, obviously it's your seller's choice if they, your buyer's choice if they want to remove their appraisal contingency or not. When you run comps, you can kind of get an idea of whether you think it'll appraise or not at $1 million. But I would warn you on not, obviously your seller's gonna, I keep saying seller, must mean I'm getting a listing. Your buyer needs to be aware what the consequences are if it doesn't appraise, okay? So we're not going to check that box, so that by not checking it, it is contingent upon it appraising for $1 million. If it doesn't appraise and we have an appraisal contingency, let's say it appraises at 950, but we have an appraisal contingency, then we can go back to the seller and say, I know we agreed for $1 million. The appraised value is 950. We can either renegotiate the price at 950. Buyer can cancel and get their deposit back because they have a contingency in place. Or they can maybe renegotiate. Maybe the seller will say, I'll reduce it to 975, but you come up with it. We'll meet in the middle. You come up with a $25,000 difference. Everything's negotiable. So if both parties agree, then we can do it. Does that make sense? Okay. Loan terms, loan applications. Hopefully by this point, they've already talked to their lender, right? Because we want to make sure they're pre-approved. Loan applications within 3 days after acceptance, buyer shall deliver to seller a letter from the buyer's lender or loan broker stating that based on a review of written application and credit report, buyer is pre-qualified or pre-approved for any new loan specified in paragraph 3D. 3D, right here, the loan right here, right? On page 1, let me scroll back down without getting you dizzy. Hopefully they've already done that and we can check this box that the letter is attached. Okay, and your offer will be stronger if your buyer's already talked to the lender, they've already gotten a pre-approval, you've got proof of funds, and you've got a written letter from your lender. It's going to be attached to the purchase agreement. So what I do as a listing agent, when I get your offer, I'm going to pick up that phone and I'm going to call your lender and I'm going to confirm that your buyer is real, he's strong, they can close this deal. Okay. Loan contingency removal. You'll notice I'm skipping things only because I'm limited on time, but I do want you to go through, print this purchase agreement, read it, get to know it. Loan contingency is written here, 21 days after acceptance, buyer shall, in writing, remove the loan contingency or cancel this agreement. 21 days is enough time to get loan approval. If your listing agent's asking for a shorter time frame, call the lender and see if they can get it done sooner. Maybe in 17 days. Maybe your offer will be stronger if they can get it done, if you can shorten that time frame. Otherwise, keep it at 21 days. 21 days for a 30-day escrow is a good time frame. If there's no loan contingency, you can check box 4, but if there is a loan, you probably don't want to check that box. Okay? Let's go to paragraph 4. Sale of buyer's property. If your buyer needs to sell their home in order to qualify to buy this home, then you would check the box. So sale of buyer's property. This agreement and buyer's ability to obtain financing are not contingent upon the sale of any property owned by buyer. Or if you check the box, this agreement and buyer's ability to obtain financing are contingent upon the sale of property owned by buyer as specified in the attached addendum. So if you check that box, Form COP is going to pop in and now be part of this agreement. Form COP will show, it'll ask questions like if it's in escrow, what's the escrow company, what's the escrow number, if it's listed yet, if it's listed, what's the MLS number, if it's not, you check the box if it's not listed yet. If you have a buyer that has to sell a house in order to buy the next house, please get that house on the market, because if you're writing an offer and there's multiple offers, they're not going to choose your offer that's contingent upon them selling a house that's not even listed yet, right? So what I would recommend that you do is when you're talking to your buyer, let them know the way the market is out there. If you don't want them to fall in love with a house and then not get it because they haven't listed their house. I'd rather see you list their house contingent upon seller finding their home of choice. Okay? So the buyer comes in and buys their house and the seller, who's your buyer, can't find the house, they can get out of that deal because it's contingent upon them finding their home of choice. They don't find their home of choice, they can cancel. But it also will make their offer stronger if they have an escrow. Their house is listed and they've got a buyer and we're just waiting to find our home, this home, okay? Even better, if we could close that deal so they have the funds in their pocket, then it's not contingent. Best case scenario, they can close that house, maybe rent it back or live with a family member or something until they find their home so they can write a non-contingent offer. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, addenda and advisories. It gives you an assortment of different addendas or advisory. If they apply, you'll check it. It comes checked with the buyer's inspection advisory. You always want to include that. It's already attached to the purchase agreement. Remember, they made it dummy proof because we want to make sure the buyers are advised to get an inspection. If they choose not to, then we're going to have them, it goes against our wishes, but we're going to have them sign a waiver. If this is a backup offer, if the property has a septic tank or a well, then you're going to want to check that box, and this form SWPI will pop in. If it's a short sale, you'll want to check this box, and the form SSA, short sale addendum, will pop in, and so on. Probate, trust, REO, which is a foreclosure, Real estate owned is what REO stands for. So if any of these apply on a regular sale, nothing else should be checked, just the buyer's inspection advisory. Other terms, if there's anything else you want to add, any other terms, you'd add it there. They just left a couple spots in case there's something we want to put in there. Allocation of costs. Inspections, reports, and certificates. Unless agreed in writing, this paragraph only determines who's to pay for the inspection, the test, the certificate. It does not determine who's to pay for any work recommended or identified in the report. So the top one, customarily, seller selects services. Customarily, seller pays for most of the closing costs. I say customarily because it's real estate, everything's negotiable, but this is the way we usually do it. Seller shall pay for natural hazard zone disclosure. I always include environmental, prepared by, we use Premier NHD as our preferred vendor. Always want the seller to pay for it. It's like $65, but we can never waive it. It's a report, the natural hazard disclosure report is a report that shows if the property is on an earthquake fault line, in a fire zone, a flood zone, high wind advisory. It talks about, you know, the land basically that the property sits on. Natural hazard zone disclosure report. So we want the seller to pay for that. Then it gives us a couple extras. We could add in there a termite inspection if we want the seller to pay for it. Be careful with termite if you're getting a loan. So if we check this, we want the seller to pay for a termite report. The lender's going to want to see a clear termite report. Okay. So I usually don't involve the termite report on the RPA. I'll have the buyer do a termite inspection, and then I might ask the seller if there's any termites or dry rot. I'll ask the seller to pay for it. But I handle it like a regular inspection. But you can put it on here if you like. Just know that if the word termite is in this contract, the lender's going to want to see a clearance from the termite company that there's no infestation or dry rot. Okay. Any questions so far? I hate how they split up B because 9 times out of 10, you guys forget to check these boxes too. But B is government requirements and retrofit. Know that this cannot be waived. Even if your buyer is going to flip the house, they're going to do a total remodel, you cannot waive the government required retrofit. The only time I've waived it is if the house is sideways and boarded up and it's falling down. Reason being is we had a situation, not my office, thank God I wasn't the broker, that waived government required retrofitting. Part of the requirements is carbon monoxide detector, and they waived it because the buyers weren't going to move in, they were going to tear it down. Well, they moved in, and the little girl died in the morning because of carbon monoxide. They found her in her bed. I don't want that on my shoulders. I don't want that on your shoulders. I will not waive government requires retrofitting for anybody. It just doesn't make sense. So the government required retrofitting, and you can take notes on this if you'd like. So the state of California, starting January 1st, 2017, made a law because we're in a drought. We're always in a drought, global warming and all that good stuff. So we're always in a drought. So the state of California, every home, whether it's an apartment, a condo, a townhouse, a mansion, whatever, every house has to have low flow toilets and shower heads. Also, every house has to have carbon monoxide detector, one on each floor. I like to put them in the hallway by the bedrooms. So California law, low flow and carbon monoxide. And then you go to government retrofitting, requirements and retrofitting. For Los Angeles, there are 4 additional things. So you have the toilet and the carbon monoxide. The government required retrofitting for Los Angeles is there needs to be a smoke detector in each bedroom and in the hallway leading to the bedroom. The water heater needs to be earthquake strapped, 2 straps. So if we have a shaker it doesn't fall and hot water doesn't burn your little tootsies. So it has to be earthquake strapped. The third thing is a seismic gas shutoff valve has to be put on your gas meter. So if we have a shaker, it automatically shuts off the gas to the house. A lot of you weren't alive in the Northridge earthquake, or if you weren't here, Balboa was on fire up by Rinaldi, San Fernando Mission. The street Balboa was on fire because the gas main broke. Houses were on fire because gas mains broke and started a fire. So after that Northridge earthquake is when they decided that it's mandatory. It used to be voluntary, but now it's mandatory for every house to have a seismic gas shutoff valve. So if we have a shaker, the gas is shut off to the house, okay? The fourth thing is those old school sliders, sliding glass doors. Now most of them are dual pane, right? So if they're to break, they shatter like your windshield on your car would. They crumble. Old school, if you were to walk through a sliding glass door, they would shear and they cut off limbs. People have died from walking through a sliding glass door. If you're buying a house that has any of those old school sliding glass doors that are not dual pane, they have the metal frames, they have to be safety glazed. A retrofitter comes out and puts a glaze on that slider so that if you were to walk through it, it would crumble and not shear and cut off your arm. Okay? So those are the 4 government required retrofitting for Los Angeles. And I'm stressing Los Angeles because in Ventura, there's only smoke detectors. So it's different in different places.
Demetra, does the office use a company that does the retrofit for the glazing? Do you know?
Yes. Retrofitting companies do the glazing. There's Metro Retro. I use Larry Macaron. I can't think of the name of his company, but yeah, whenever I have a listing, I have my retrofitter come and he makes sure that the smoke detectors are, because they're supposed to be in each bedroom and in the hallways leading to the bedroom, that they're in working order. If it's a townhouse or a condo, they need to be hardwired with a battery backup. I make sure, I can't tell if a toilet's low flow, can you? So I make sure he tells me if they're low flow. If they're not, he replaces them. He puts the seismic gas shutoff valve. I can't tell by looking at it if it's got permits or not. He makes sure they're permitted. And he'll do the safety glaze, the earthquake strap on the retrofitting company. When you have a listing, they have to come out. And in fact, it's one of the requirements that I have on my checklist. When you have a listing, that you have an invoice from a retrofitter. I want to make sure that the house was retrofitted. Because if it wasn't, it's going to come back and it's going to be a lawsuit and it's going to be your E&O, your deductible, and I'm going to be involved. So we want to avoid that, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And who pays for that?
Well, right now we're checking that seller. We want the seller to pay for. We represent the buyer. We're going to ask the seller to pay for everything. And customarily, the seller does pay for retrofitting. Customarily, the seller pays for most of the closing things. Okay? So that's why we got seller checked on all 3 of these. Do we have any questions regarding government requirements and retrofitting? I know I spent a lot of time on it, but it's very important. Make sure all 3 of these boxes are checked for seller. If there's no other questions, we'll go on to escrow and title. Check both boxes. Okay? Customarily, each pays their own. So escrow and title. So buyer and seller shall pay escrow fee. And then over here, each to pay own. Don't put split 50-50 because the fees for the seller might be different than the fees for the buyer. So we're agreeing that each will pay their own escrow fees. Escrow holders shall be, remember when we first sat down to write the offer, we called the listing agent because seller customarily selects services. So we call the listing agent and say, what escrow company do you want? I don't want to have to get a counter offer saying what the escrow company is. So I like to do it up front. You can put seller's choice. I like it to be spelled out so when we get an accepted offer, we know who our escrow company is. So when I called, this was a Rodeo agent, their escrow is Encore Escrow. I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. And then down here, this is for title. It's the seller's title. We want the seller to pay for the owner's title insurance policy. Owner's title policy to be issued by, you could put seller's choice. I happen to know they use Progressive Title. Okay. We use lawyer's title. They use Progressive Title. Seller select services. So we're going to ask the listing agent, who's your title? Who do you want for escrow? Okay. If they don't care, seller's choice. If they don't care, use ours. Wonderland Escrow and lawyer's title. But they will care. Other costs. Seller to pay county transfer tax. Seller to pay city transfer tax fee. Seller to pay homeowners association. If there's no homeowners association, don't check anything. If it's a condo or if it's a PUD, a planned unit development, a house that has a homeowners association, then you're going to want to check seller to pay for the transfer fee and and preparing all documents. So this house doesn't have an HOA, so I'm going to ask for the seller to pay for county and city transfer tax. Seller to pay for any private transfer fee. I will check seller and then I'll put if applicable. We don't see a lot of a private transfer tax. You see it in Saugus, Newhall, Santa Clarita. It's called Melrose. So put if applicable. So if it applies, then the seller will pay for it. Then it gives you a couple spots here. If there's something else you want the seller to pay for, I usually leave those blank. Number 10, we want the seller to pay for a home warranty. Home warranty, there's a booklet that shows you, depending on what the house has, how much to ask for. If it's a single family, if it's less than 5,000 square feet, it's one price. If it's over 5,000, it goes up. If there's a pool, if you want different coverage, just depending on what you're gonna want for your buyer, the price varies. They've gone up. Bella has a new booklet out. I have one here in my office. We've got them in the vault, and you can also find them online. I think, Whitney, I think you have it. Don't you post it on our site? So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and put not to exceed, this is $1 million house. Let's put not to exceed $900. Always check upgraded policy. Their standard policy covers nothing. So you always want to check that it's an upgraded policy. So you're asking the seller to buy the buyer a home warranty plan for $900 issued by, I use Bella Klasky at Fidelity National Home Warranty. Following option coverages, you want air conditioner. If it's got a pool, you want to check pool. And you could add other things if you choose to. Okay, so that's for your home warranty. You want the seller to pay for that. I love my home warranty. It's saved me many, many dollars. It's for a year. We want the seller to pay for it. So your buyer, after a year is up, they'll get a bill from the home warranty. And if they want to continue with it, they can pay for it. And it covers, like, if your air conditioner goes out, if your pool equipment break, dishwasher, garbage disposal, air conditioner, heater, things like that. It'll cover. Actually, Fidelity National Home Warranty now offers a 2-year plan. So you can ask for that as well. Obviously, it'll be twice as much. If they're, for whatever reason, if they're gonna tear the house down and they don't want a home warranty, then they can check that. They wouldn't fill anything in here. You would check this box. Buyer waives the purchase of a home warranty plan. Okay, so it's either one or the other. Either you're getting it or you're not. Highly recommend they get it. Okay. What time are we? We have 30 minutes left. Okay, great. Anybody have any questions? We're going too fast. Tomorrow's class is going to be short. So this is basically what all the seller is going to be paying for. Okay. Items included and excluded from the sale. Note to buyer and seller, items listed as included or excluded in the MLS or in flyers or marketing materials are not included in the purchase or excluded from the sale. So you've got to make sure that we've had many lawsuits where it wasn't in the purchase agreement, but in the marketing and in the MLS, it would talk about the swing set or the dollhouse out back or whatever. If it's not included unless you include it in the purchase agreement in this form right here. Even if it's on the marketing materials or it's stated in the MLS, it's not included in the sale unless you physically include it right here, okay? Items included in the sale, all existing fixtures and fittings that are attached to the property. Existing electrical, mechanical, lighting, plumbing, heating fixtures, ceiling fans, fireplace inserts, gas logs and grates, solar power systems, built-in appliances, window and door screens, awnings, shutters, window coverings, attached floor coverings, television antennas, satellite dishes, air coolers, conditioners, pool spa equipment, garage door opener, remote controls, mailbox, in-ground landscaping, trees, shrubs, water features and fountains, water softeners, public water purifiers, security systems, alarms, and the following if checked. So if you want the stove to stay, even though it's built in, I check it. Because I want everybody to be aware that that it's attached, but I want the sellers especially to be aware that they cannot take it. So I'm going to go ahead and check the stove. If your buyers want the refrigerator, check it. If they want the washer and dryer, check it. If there is no washer and dryer in the house, don't check it. They're not going to buy you one. But if there is one there and they want it, if there is one there and your buyer doesn't want it because they want to get a brand new front loader, don't check it. Otherwise, your buyers are going to have to get rid of it, and that's a cost. Okay? And if there's anything else that they want, notice it says all refrigerators. There might be a kitchen refrigerator. There might be a little kitchen outside, an outside kitchen that has a little refrigerator. There might be a refrigerator in the garage. Okay, so it's all refrigerators. Except if you don't want the garage one, except garage refrigerator, have them take it out. Okay, so this is where you're going to put in the following additional items. If you want that swing set in the backyard, ask for it here. If you want whatever is in the property, the patio furniture, the above ground spa, you're not sure if it's attached, put it here. You want it to stay. Okay. It goes on to talk about integrated phone systems, leased or liened items, and then down here on C, items excluded from the sale. Unless otherwise specified, the following items are excluded. Audio and video components such as flat screen TV, speakers, and other items. They're excluded. If any such item is not itself attached to the property, even if a bracket or mechanism is attached to the component or items attached to the property, furniture and other items secured to the property for earthquake purposes. So that's excluded. If you have a fancy vase and you put that glue looks like gum so that it's stuck to the counter or the mantle. So if we have an earthquake, it doesn't fall over and break. That doesn't mean it's included in the property. It's just there for earthquake purposes. A lot of us have that to secure some items because I've been through many earthquakes and I've lost a lot of stuff. So I have that too. So that doesn't mean it's included. It doesn't mean it's attached because you have the earthquake glue. Brackets to attached walls, flooring, or ceilings of such component furniture or items shall remain with the property, or if you check that box, will be removed, and the holes or other damage shall be repaired but not painted. So if they've got a big TV and a bracket, it's on the wall, and you don't want it there, you can ask them to remove it, remove the bracket, and patch the holes that's going to leave in the wall. They will patch it, but they're not going to paint it. Okay. All right. Closing in possession. Buyer intends, or if the box is checked, does not intend to occupy the property as buyer's primary residence. Important. Why is it important? The loan. The loan interest rate might go up if it's non-owner occupied. Seller occupied or vacant property, possession shall be delivered to buyer at 6 p.m. on the date of close of escrow, or no later than blank calendar days after close of escrow. Sometimes we see that the seller might need 2 or 3 days after escrow closes. They might need the money from the close in order to pay for their move. So when you're talking to the listing agent, she might tell you, you know, we need possession, close of escrow +3, which would mean escrow closes and then the seller's got 3 days to move out. If both parties agree to that, okay? Any questions on that? Best case scenario, you want them out the day it records. But sometimes you know, we got to work with people. Again, if they need the money from the proceeds in order to make their move, we might have to do, you know, agree to that. Okay. Buyer's going to go ahead and initial the bottom of page 3. And we go on to the next page. Any questions on page 3? You guys are also smart. I like questions though. Don't be afraid to ask any questions. Seller remaining in possession after the close of escrow. Oh, we don't like that, but sometimes we have to do it. Basically, the seller needs to rent back the property for whatever reason. If the seller has the right to remain in possession after close of escrow, in other words, we're agreeing to it, we the buyer, the parties are advised to sign a separate occupancy agreement. So if the seller is staying in the house up to 30 days, less than 30 days, then you need a SIP form, SIP, seller in possession. So if they're staying, if they want that 3 days, or if they want 2 weeks, up to 29 days, then you're gonna check this box, and the seller in possession addendum now is included in our purchase agreement. If they want to rent back longer, 30 days or more, then they need an RLAS, which is a residential lease agreement. Residential lease agreement. So if they want to rent it back for a month or 2 months for whatever reason, then you're going to check this box and the RLAS will pop and you'll have to fill that out. Now they can stay rent free. They can stay usually if the seller's going to stay in the buyer's property, you know, once it closes, the property now belongs to the buyer. They usually negotiate the buyer's PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So basically the seller is paying the buyer's mortgage payment. Again, everything's negotiable. It's whatever the buyer and seller agreed to, okay? So depending on if you need to
I have a question.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Right about that statement that you're making. I came across a house for sale that in the realtor remarks said that the buyer will need 5 days after close. Like it was just in the realtor's notes.
Perfect.
Say we did write up something and it says 5 days after close of escrow they can stay, or they needed the weekend. Still need to put this one into it, D?
Yes, you would check car form SIP.
Okay.
And when you get to that form, you don't have to charge them. You can charge them $100 a day, whatever your buyer. If the buyer just says, you know what, I got a good price, I'm happy with it, we're not going to charge them. They can have 5 days. It's a little scary, especially right now where there's a moratorium on evictions, because now the seller is now your client's tenant. I have an agent that their client yesterday, I was helping her write an offer, and they wanted 3 days after close, and they're going, what if they don't leave? Well, the same thing can happen. What if you close escrow and they don't leave? You've got the same situation.
Yes. Okay.
So
Yeah.
hopefully they will leave. That's why we do a final walkthrough, which will go into tomorrow's class. And that kind of shows you if they haven't packed a box and we're to close escrow in 3 days, we have a problem, right? So, but yeah, and this is, everything's negotiable. You can, if your buyer is okay with them staying for 5 days, maybe they said okay for 3, but not 5, and maybe they want to charge them or maybe not, just depends whatever we can negotiate. Okay. So yeah, in that case, you would check this box, this SIP form, seller continued occupancy for less than 30 days. And you would put on that form how many days they can stay. Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you.
Next, if there's a tenant in the property, and the buyer's buying it, but they want to keep the tenant, then you would check this box, tenant to remain in possession. This TIP form will pop in. We're not going to, it's a little convoluted. We're not going to get into that right now. The next paragraph is statutory and other disclosures, including lead-based paint and cancellation rights. So that goes on. This goes on to different, and we're going to on Friday have our disclosure class where houses that were built after 1978, we used lead in our paint. So this disclosure goes into lead-based paint. There's going to be TDS, the transfer disclosure statement, the natural hazard disclosure statement. These are just kind of briefly going over the different things that the buyer is going to receive from the seller. And the buyer's got a right to review everything. They've got a certain time frame. We'll get into it tomorrow's class when we get into paragraph 14, where they have time to look over all the disclosures, and there's a back out period if their contingency remains in effect. So we'll go over that in more detail tomorrow. This goes into natural and environmental hazard disclosures and other booklets the listing agent's going to provide you with, withholding taxes. Megan's Law. There's a website that you can go to that buyers can go to. You don't want to do it for them. It just increases your liability. Just like you're not going to go pull permits for your buyers. You feel like you're doing, you're helping. I'll go stand in line and at the city and pull permits. No, because if you get information that's incorrect and you provide that to your buyer, you're more liable. So I want you to help them as much as possible, but you need to know your limits. You don't pull permits for them. You don't pull up Megan's Law, the database. The buyers are welcome to do it. Here we're telling them about it. They can call the local police department to see what the crime rate is in the neighborhood. That's all up to let the buyers do their own due diligence, okay? Notice regarding gas and hazardous liquid transmission pipelines, condominium planned development disclosures. If it isn't a condominium or a PUD, a planned unit development, the seller has 7 days after acceptance to disclose to buyer if the property is in a condominium or is located in a planned development. If the property is a condominium or located in a planned unit development, the seller has 3 days after acceptance to request from the HOA forms. Your buyer's going to get the CC&Rs, but it takes time. So the seller needs to, through escrow, will order the HOA docs and provide them to your buyer. Condition of property. Got to make sure, especially when you're a listing agent, to educate your seller that the property needs to be in the same condition it is when you close. So I had a situation, I represented the buyer, and we went to do our final walkthrough. As soon as we opened escrow, the seller canceled the pool man and the gardener. So 30 days later, the pool was swamp and the grass was 3 feet tall and dying. So we need to educate our sellers that no, we need to keep it in the same condition it is. That it also goes into the properties are sold in their as-is condition as of the date of acceptance. Seller doesn't have to do anything to upgrade the property. It's funny to me when sellers or listing agents will say this house is being sold as is. Yeah, all houses are. All houses are being sold in as is present physical condition as the date of acceptance. The only thing the seller has to do are those government required retrofitting. They don't have to bring things to code. Codes change all the time. And a lot of the houses here in the valley were built, this valley was built really in the 50s and 60s, 70s. So a lot of codes have changed over the years. Doesn't mean that the seller does not have to bring them up to code. So the property is sold in its as-is present physical condition as of the date of acceptance, subject to the buyer's investigation rights. Pool and spa landscaping grounds to be maintained in its substantially the same condition as of the date of acceptance. And all debris and personal property not included the sale shall be removed by the close of escrow. Okay, the sellers, this is something that, again, when you're a listing agent, you need to educate your sellers that when you're out, You can't leave your crap behind. You can't leave your trash behind. You can't just take what you want to keep and leave everything else behind, right? It needs to be free and clear of all debris. Should also be, I like to have it what we call broom swept. Doesn't have to be scrubbed, but it should be, broom swept. The seller shall, within the time specified in paragraph 14A, which we'll get to tomorrow, disclose known material facts and defects affecting the property, including any known insurance claims within the past 5 years, and make any and all other disclosures required by law. The buyer has the right to conduct buyer investigations of the property. Even though it's being sold as is, we highly recommend that buyers get an inspection. And then we can ask the seller to fix things. The seller doesn't have to, but we can ask them to fix things. We can ask them to credit us, or we can ask for a reduction in price, I've seen. But the seller doesn't have to do anything except the government required retrofitting. Buyers strongly advised to conduct investigations on the entire property in order to determine its present condition. Seller may not be aware of all defects affecting the property and other factors that buyer considers important. Property improvements may not be built according to code in compliance with current law, or may have had permits issued. Buyer's investigation of the property. Buyer's acceptance of the condition of and any other matter affecting the property is a contingency of this agreement. Okay, so it's contingent upon the buyers doing an inspection. They have, as the contract is written, 17 days to review all the disclosures and do all of their inspections. I've never seen more inspections than I've seen lately. It usually starts off with a home inspection, a regular inspection, where they check the roof, they go in the attic, they go under the house, they run the washing machine, they run the air conditioner, the heater, they run stuff to make sure. They'll run water and then go under the house to see if there's any leaks, stuff like that. And that now, besides that, I'm seeing roof inspectors, pool inspectors, sewer, chimney, mold. It goes on and on and on and on. The buyer pays for those inspections. They have the right to get as many inspections as they want. They're paying for them. And if anything's uncovered, they have the right to ask the seller to fix it, but the seller doesn't have to. The reason for inspections is to see the condition of the property. It's not a checklist of what the buyer has to do, because remember, houses are sold in their as-is condition. Okay. And then if the buyer wants these things fixed, the seller says no, the buyer can then cancel if they choose. They've got a contingency in place. Okay. Any questions? All right, guys. Title investing within the time specified in paragraph 14, which we're going to start tomorrow with paragraph 14. Buyer should be provided a current preliminary title report. The preliminary report is an offer by the title insured, so it shows if there's any liens or anything on the house. Escrow and title make sure there's no liens when the title is transferred, is to be free and clear. Title is taken in its present condition, subject to all encumbrances, easements, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, rights, and other matters. Within the time specified in paragraph 14, seller has a duty to disclose to buyer all matters known to seller affecting title, whether it's recorded or not. The buyer's going to receive a homeowner's title policy, policy of title insurance while we're in escrow. And it's their job to read through it, your job to read through it as well. If you don't understand it, reach out to Mark or Serena. They can walk you through it. They're the experts on the preliminary title report. And they're amazing. At the bottom of each of these pages, there's a spot for your buyer to initial. Make sure they initial each page. It's just stating that they've received a copy of it. And that we're a little early, but I'm not going to get started on 14 because we're going to get in that goes into a lot of detail. We're going to start off with that tomorrow. Question time. None? So
I have a question.
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, going back, when you call the listing agent and ask them how many offers you have,
Yes.
normally they tell you the truth or they lie?
Normally, they tell you the truth.
And how about over the asking price when you ask them? Normally they tell you the truth
You've
or
got
they
to
lie?
assume, we have to assume they're telling the truth. I don't think it's worth anybody's reputation or losing their license to lie. So especially in this environment where there is no inventory, very low inventory, you must assume that they're telling the truth. And I think for the most part, we're all honest people. I've never accused anybody else of lying. It's just not worth it to me. I work hard to have my license and to keep my license. It's given me a good life, and I wouldn't jeopardize my license or my freedom. Because if you commit fraud, you could go to jail. So I don't think anybody would lie. I'd like to believe that. So I assume that what they're telling me is the truth, especially in this environment. There's low inventory, a month's worth of inventory when in a normal world it's 6 months. So it's, no, you assume that they're telling you the truth.
Okay, thank you.
And you don't want to accuse anybody of lying. I mean, especially the listing agent. We want them to choose us. We want to call them and tell them what a beautiful listing they have and tell them how great our clients are. And, we want to be very upbeat and ask the right questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Demetra, I have a question.
Yes, thank you.
So in this market, let's say on May 1st, this house goes on the market and you have a client and you put in an offer. This RPA written that we have to know after 72 days, yet we see that they're looking at, the listing agent says that they're going to submit all offers on the 10th, but we submitted an offer on the 1st. Is this null? Does this?
No. On paragraph 31, we'll get to tomorrow is the expiration of offer.
Okay.
We can have the offer expire in 2 weeks or whatever day we want it to.
Okay.
Okay. Usually they don't leave that much, especially in this environment. They're going to get 20 offers in the first few days. So I wouldn't imagine they'd wait weeks to present. And if that's the case, I might not write it right away because I might want to find out how many offers they have and what price, because it's going to be a bidding war most likely in today's environment. So
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes.
So say I'm representing the seller and they have unpermitted work done to the property. The only thing I would have to do is disclose that, correct?
You and your seller need to disclose it, correct?
Okay. Awesome.
Not included. And if it's included in the square footage, buyer to beware. The den was built with no permits. Buyer to verify permits and square footage. Put it on.
Awesome.
Close it and put it onto the buyer. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Good question. Anybody else? We can talk about anything.
I have another question, Demetra. So, as you said once to me, the paragraph 20 and 21 wasn't initialed by buyer, and you said that could be one of the reasons in the past my offer was not accepted.
We're going to go into paragraph 20 and 21 tomorrow.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
So, just want to let you know.
Damages.
The question is, I use the autofill. I mean, when you go to the send it for e-signature, so the system automatically mark down the area supposed to be initial, and that's why I didn't go through the every step. So I assume every
you can make it so that they have the option of initialing there or not. I don't do auto. I do it myself.
Yes. Okay.
And that's why, because I want
That's why I trusted before, and I allowed, they chose it and I sent it out, and looks like they didn't do all the requirements.
Right. Well, it's not required if you don't check it. I mean, nothing. But that's why I don't do automatic anything. I want to make sure I'm representing my clients. It's my job to protect them. I want to make sure I'm having them initial everything that they should initial.
Yes. Alrighty. Thank you.
Hi, Demetra.
Hi.
If that sliding door, 3 sections of the sliding door And do we have to put the, glaze protection on all three of them, or just only the one that slide?
Very good question, Steve. Yes. The law states that it only has to be on the one that moves.
Okay, great. Thank you.
However, I think it's just as easy to walk through the one that doesn't move. So
Yeah.
I have them put the safety glaze on all of them,
Okay, great. Thank you.
just to protect my buyers. Yeah.
Okay.
But legally, no, just the one that slides.
Okay.
Okay. Good
Thank
question. Anybody else? This is all good stuff. All right. Well, that's it. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we're going to continue and finish off this contract. And then Friday, we're going to get into the disclosures, which is the number one reason our sellers get sued is lack of disclosure. So it's a real important class. I hope to see you all back tomorrow and Friday. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Demetra.
Thank you,
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Demetra.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much.